I'm Russ, that's Will, and today we're talking Schmidt about the Death Star. Thanks for checking out Talking Schmidt. Today we are discussing how lasers are portrayed in Star Wars. Specifically, we're going to discuss how the Death Star's death ray compares to actual lasers. Okay, Will, before we start talking about the Death Star, I wanted to bring something up. When I first mentioned this project to you, you confided in me, and I am now sharing with all of our YouTube viewers that you have actually never seen a Star Wars film. Is that correct?
That's true. That's a polite way of putting it. The only one that I have seen, and I don't even know if I should admit this, is the one with Jar Jar Binks, and that's about all that I remember. I'm familiar with the story. I'm familiar with some of the characters, but sadly, I'm not cultured enough to have seen all of them.
So for this discussion, we're going to watch a scene in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, in which the Death Star uses its death ray. Death ray? I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it officially has a name. Someone in the comment section is probably already correcting us. So go ahead and hit publish on that comment and let us know what the official name of the Death Star's laser of destruction is called, if it even has one. But the Death Star is going to blow up the planet Alderaan using its death ray. And we're going to watch that scene and just discuss how realistic of a laser that death ray actually is. Let's stop it right here. For a long time I was amazed or didn't understand why these two guys standing right next to the laser beam don't just get vaporized by the heat the laser emits as it passes by. Can you explain why that doesn't happen?
Yeah, there is a reason for that. While it looks like they are shading away and it looks like they should be burned away, lasers actually do not emit any heat. Heat is generated by the movement of atomic or molecular particles, and lasers are made of photons, so they don't actually have a temperature. So that's why these guys might not actually be incinerated like you think that they might be.
Okay, so laser beams don't actually have a temperature. There's no heat coming from the laser beam. But the lasers that we make here for marking, they generate heat on metals and plastic, and that heat vaporizes material, and that's how marks are made. How does it generate heat and vaporize material if the laser doesn't actually have a temperature?
When a laser is actually focused on an object, they transfer all their energy to the atomic or molecular structure of the object, and that causes the atomic and molecular particles to move, and ultimately that generates heat. So if that process is done long enough, the heat can then cause the material to vaporize, and that, in a very basic sense, is pretty much how lasers work. The other thing that I did notice about this too, Russer, is that lasers must be monochromatic, which means that they all must be on the same frequency and they all must move in synchrony, or they all must be coherent. So in that earlier ones where you're seeing the different colors and the different way that they're moving, whether some are moving in circles and some are moving straight forward, that's also kind of something a little bit sci-fi, if you will.
Here we see that the Death Star doesn't actually have just one laser. It has a super laser. And a super laser is basically when multiple lasers come together to form one bigger laser. It's sort of like the Voltron of lasers, or the Captain Planet of lasers. So the problem with this super laser is that all of the smaller lasers, they just sort of stop at one point. Realistically, if you shot 5 lasers at each other, or all at one point, they would converge at that point, but then they would just keep going infinitely until it hit something that had mass, a wall or a chair or something.
And I think that they're on the right path, by how they have it portrayed there. But like you said, there would need to be right where that where all the lasers come to that convergent point. One way, like you said, I don't know as well if a super laser actually exists like this, but in theory, if you were to have, say, a diamond cut perfectly with all those lasers coming in at the perfect point. In theory, you could get them all to concentrate into one quote-unquote super laser. But whether that actually exists in real world, I am not sure.
Okay, so here's the big question. If you had a laser that was presumably big enough and powerful enough to destroy a planet, would the planet actually explode like this?
Probably not. What would most likely end up happening is it would bore a hole directly to the core. And then once it reached the core, that's where things could really get interesting.
I was thinking something along the same lines. If Earth got shot by a giant laser from space, I don't think there would be an explosion. I think the laser would just start boring through the surface of the planet and then eventually hit the planet's core and then keep going all the way through the planet. And in that process, I think the Earth would lose its structural integrity and start just crumbling and shattering. So you would still be left with the Earth in 1,000 million pieces, but I don't think that would be preceded by an explosion.
I think you're right. I think if I'm following, I think the core would heat up, and as that core gets hotter, it'd probably end up boiling, creating gases, which would end up needing to be released somewhere. And so I think you'd say, we'd end up seeing a lot of earthquakes, we'd see a lot of tectonic plate movement, might even see some of the oceans and some of our water raising temperatures.
Well, with all that said, with any luck, we will never find out what would happen if Earth got shot by a giant laser from space, because the results would not be pretty, regardless of whether or not there was an explosion. That said, if it does happen, we'll post a reaction video or something. That's it for this discussion. If you enjoyed the video, we'd appreciate it if you gave us a like. And while you're down there, why don't you leave us a comment? Let us know what you think would happen if Earth got shot by a giant laser from space. And also let us know what other lasers in comic books and video games, movies, TV shows, books, whatever, you would like us to discuss in our next video. Thanks for talking SCHMIDT with us, and may the Force be with you.